to say good afternoon or good morning, depending on, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you are in. And I would like to introduce you Mirna, who is going to hold our session today. So she's a trainer, a speaker, and a coach with 17 years of experience with a primary focus on positive psychology and train the trainer topics. Her work spans NGOs, startups, and corporations with clients from over 50 countries, including organizations such as L'Oreal and Cisco. As the founder of Trainers Toolbox and Happiness Academy, Mirna empowers trainers to design impactful and memorable learning experiences. And a big applause for Mirna. Thank you so much for being with us today, and I'm giving you the stage.
Thank you so much, Judith, for making me blush right at the beginning of the session. Jokes aside, I'm really looking forward to be here. Hi, everyone. I heard that the event is going very interestingly. I heard you're challenging with many good questions, so that's great. I'm looking forward. And thank you, Judith and Grace, for the invitation to join on the topic of resilience. I do want to ask everyone just to warm up for the topic a little bit. When we say resilience, what's your first association? And you can drop it in chat, or when we say mental strength or resilience, what are the first just, random words and associations that come to your mind? Because it's a little bit, it's a keyword, resilience, that people meet in very different contexts. And honestly, they have very different experiences with it. So I do want to check in, where are we all with that? And how are we seeing it? And then I'll share with you also a bit more about what is ahead of us. Cool, I see some first ideas coming in. Growth mindset, living in current world and times. Don't give up. Victory, oh, strength, getting back up again, learning from experience. Be strong, internal strength, bouncing back. Strength to overcome any hardship with authenticity. Oh, love that. Becoming stronger by overcoming stress and challenges, anti-fragile, pushing through. Okay, I see a lot of perseverance coming up out of it. It's interesting because perseverance is really important for resilience, but there is one thing that's even more important than perseverance. I'll share a little bit later what it is. I see also inner strength and capacity to face challenges. Awesome, love that. So welcome to the topic today. And the topic is, thank you, by the way, for sharing your ideas in chat. The topic is how to thrive in challenging times, challenging moments, challenging, parts of life, really with focus on practical tools. And to be fair, this is a topic that can be really complicated, and it's one that's very broad. And unlike other topics in positive psychology, which is my primary area with which I work, I would say resilience is the least straightforward. Like for well-being, there are clear answers and tools from research what contributes to well-being. For resilience, there are many different models that are completely different, and they all work in a way, but you really have to choose which approach will you take. And more than any other area related to well-being, resilience is the most individual to a point. Like some of us can be very strong in face of a specific set of challenges and really challenged by something completely different. That could be very easy for someone else. I'll give you an example. Some of the challenges we encounter in life can be, I think the most obvious example these days, COVID and the whole lockdown and the whole period of less social contacts and so on, right? That's one type of challenge that has its own difficulties. Losing a job can be completely different challenge, or having health issues, or having an accident, and then also big set of positive events in life, like moving to another country, finding a new job for which we're not fully equipped yet, being brave to look for a new job or a new country, getting married, having kids. These are all challenges that also require resilience or mental strength. And in a way, for some of us, some of these will be almost easy because we are already equipped with some skills to deal with them. And maybe they match our personality a bit better. And others will be hugely difficult. And what will be easy for us will be very difficult for someone else, and the opposite. Because of that, with resilience, more than anything, it is crucial and really important to think about it from our perspective. And the best way of learning resilience or strengthening resilience is by understanding what is it for me that historically worked, and also what are the new tools. Can I test them? Can I try them out? But then really being picky, which one has potential for me and which one maybe it's not so relevant for me. So more than anything with resilience, I would invite you to be curious, reflective, self-reflective, but also picky about the tools, and not to think we need to go in order and that we have a recipe for resilience or an algorithm. Instead, it's really unique set for everyone. Having that said, we will look into what do we know from science of positive psychology, from different research. What do we know about resilience? What are in general strong contributors and the tools and the approaches that can make us more mentally strong? And how does it work? And I'll share with you one concept. We call it pool of resilience, or capacity of resilience, or container of resilience. They're different names, which is one of the best, you could say, metaphors to explain what is resilience actually. How does it work actually? What's the mechanism of it? Because it's not always obvious. And then we're gonna still also kind of mention and touch what are the 4 different big sources of our resilience, things that support and feed into our resilience. And across this, so this will be, all these 3 topics will be sort of an intro, just for maybe the first half or less than half of our call, setting the foundation of how can we work on it. And then we want to play with tools to be more resilient. And here I'm happy to share different small practical tools and approaches. And I'm also very happy to discuss and hear, questions, concerns, ideas, or anything else from you on specifically how could we build something up, or what would be some of the ways of dealing with a certain challenge. I just want to make it very, very clear that while there are right principles we can follow to build our resilience, there are no right answers what makes me resilient specifically. There is a set of answers, what makes people resilient in general, and they're very specific, and there are specific tools and tips and so on, but we still have to work through which of these applies for me and how. Not so easy, right? Sorry for that, but it's the reality of building resilience. And then we want to also at the very end just stop for a little bit to think which of these do we want to use, which of these do we want to kind of interact with or look into. Now, if this sort of an agenda is missing something for you, you can already drop it in chat. You will have a chance also, especially after the introduction, to add in any questions or whatever concerns or examples. Keep the chat going all the time. No worries on that. I'll be happy to include it. But also, I'll also stop occasionally to give a chance to add on even more to that. Is it okay if I move on to? Yeah. So just a brief hi from me before we start. Judith already represented me. My name is Mirna. It means peaceful, calm, and quiet in Croatian, the biggest lie ever told in the world. I love training and I love positive psychology. I'm a huge nerd on both. I primarily work with coaching, so practical training of skills, practical training of these skills. So if you will also be looking to dive in deeper, look for more, feel that any question is not answered, find me in L&D Shakers or on LinkedIn. By all means, connect, share your experiences, ask questions. I'll be very happy to connect. I'm fairly active in Shakers anyway, so I hope to see you there as well. Now, what does it mean to thrive in challenging times? And I'll go with this intro, not so much discussion based and not asking you so much, but more kind of going through it fairly concisely with the goal that we focus really more on the practical. What can you do with that? What are the tools? What are then the practical approaches? Thank you, Grace, for the LinkedIn link in chat. So with this one, I hope everything will be clear, but I won't be building it up so much. Now, when we say resilience or thriving in challenging times, this is what it means. It means a capacity to cope with changes and challenges. So person's capacity to cope with changes and challenges, and also to bounce back during and after difficult times. So the idea is here, First of all, resilience is not just a skill. Resilience is a capacity. I'll talk a bit later what does that mean exactly. It's broader than just a skill. It involves some skills, but it's broader than just a skill. It's about dealing with challenges, both positive and negative ones. So not just when something is horrible that requires us to be resilient, also when we set a big, exciting goal that requires us to be resilient. And then there is also that aspect of, in a way, it's about how we deal with challenge while we experience it, but also how we bounce back after the challenge, if we were, shocked by it or surprised by it or in any way experienced it negatively. Now, in practice, what is really important is that it has two aspects. One aspect is internal, and that is, as I go through challenging moment, how do I feel? And of course, it doesn't mean while something is difficult, I should be cheerful and excited all the time. But it means I have some level of confidence that I can deal with this situation. I don't feel completely hijacked and anxious about the situation, but I have some level of feeling grounded, maybe feeling confident that I can do something about this, feeling strong, or anything else that's like, I feel okay, even though the situation is challenging. Again, not necessarily super happy, but okay, good enough. And on the other hand, we have the side of external results, what I do. And it's not enough that I feel okay when situation is difficult. If that means I'll just sit on my couch and feel okay while, everybody else is miserable and the situation is horrible. And the opposite. External or results means my behaviors, my actions. It means I'm stepping up actively towards the situation. And that is important. Without that, I'm not resilient. But it's also not enough if it's not balanced with also me not feeling overwhelmed and stressed. Now, I'm very curious already here to invite you to just reflect for a moment, which of these two are you stronger at? And maybe we can give a little voting with reactions in Zoom. So in the main menu, you should have reactions button. And in reactions, maybe we can go with the balloon for those who are better with feeling okay and balancing ourselves and kind of grounding ourselves. Or we can go with the little rocket if you're all about action. I'm good with getting into action, getting actions done. So I'll invite you to do that little voting. So if you feel like you're better, I see the first balloon popping up, okay? If you feel like you're better at self-managing, at feeling okay, but you're not so prone to step into action, let's go with the balloon. I saw one balloon and one rocket so far. We can do more. Okay, I see a few more. Oh, I see also some rockets in chat. Awesome, that works too. Okay, so we have a lot of rockets in the team and a few balloons. Okay, thank you for sharing. I think it's really important to recognize for yourself, how can I work also on the other? How can I balance it with the other as well? Cool. Thanks for sharing. Now, how can we keep developing that resilience? The most important thing to understand is this idea of capacity. So we think resilience is often we think that resilience is like a skill. You do it, you do it in a certain way. But it's much more of a capacity. And capacity means it's something that at each moment for me is to some level filled up. It can be very empty or very full or anywhere in between. And I have different skills to fill it up and to manage it. That means that on one side, it's relying on our skills and abilities and experiences and so on, knowledge. But on the other side, it also relates to how we are in this moment, like physically how we are, emotionally how we are, how we can manage that and so on. And when we think about resilience like that, we recognize that there are two things that are important about it. One is to have mechanisms to fill it up, right? To be aware if it's got emptier, I need it more, how can I strengthen it? So having that ability to fill it up. On the other hand, we need to have it to a certain level full most of the time, because that's much easier than to wait for a challenge and then, quickly let's fix it, right? So to do that, we need to know what is filling up our pool and what is emptying. And every pool is being filled by many parallel sources and streams and mini rivers. And we'll go a bit more specific into what these are, and we'll reflect more specifically for you, what are they? But the important thing is there are many options on what can fill it up. And we don't have to have control over all of them all the time. But we also don't want to be relying on only one or two. We want to have a bit of flexibility, several options. Great example here can be, again, back to COVID and like lockdown and whatnot. In that period, if you were relying a lot to social connections as your source of resilience, especially like face-to-face social connections, it might have been really, really a challenging period for you if you didn't have an alternative to lean into, right? Or maybe into sports, because in many countries that was quite limited, right? So if that were your go-to mechanisms, these are really good mechanisms, some of the best ones. But if they were your main sole only mechanism and you didn't have an alternative, you really probably felt like somebody pulled carpet out of your feet, right? So we want to always have alternatives and ability to change the sources and to use different sources. On the other hand, we also want to be aware of drainers. What steals it? You know, what takes away from my resilience? And I would be very curious to hear from you here, and you can post in chat. You can also totally unmute and jump in. I'll just ask you to kind of keep it more brainstormy and short. What would you say fills up your resilience pool? What are small things, big things, anything in life that you feel contributes to your resilience, makes you stronger in some way? I'll give you a minute or two to write in chat. I see already first few ideas, but I think it's also a question that requires a bit of thinking and processing. So I'll wait for a few more ideas before reading through. Okay, love that. I'll start reading, but please do keep them coming. So we had friends. Yes, big one. Relationships in general. Thank you. Good communication, appreciation. Love that. So also connections with others, but also emotions we get from that. Hiking in nature definitely fills it up. Journaling, meditation, movement. Love that. Reassurance from peers. Relationship, nutrition, movement, meditation, being in nature. I love this. Lily is connecting several factors I'll mention. Then Marike says, doing things that remind me I'm human outside of work. Okay, love that. Art, surrounding myself with like-minded people, definitely. Friends, I see friends are ranking high. Good. Therapy, dancing, music, reminder of how good it is to be alive. I love that. Positive emotions in a way. Asking myself what's in my hands that I can do about it. Can I do anything about it, or is it out of my control? Yes, that's a great question. Even better that it's not can I, but what? What could I do and what is out of my control? Because always there is some little level of control, at least in terms of mindset and thoughts about the event. But love that. One of the key questions to resilience is what can I influence and what should I accept? Where can I act on this situation and where should I learn to deal with it because it's not changeable by me? Thank you for that question or for that comment. Okay, nature, okay, children. I can imagine children can go both ways, to be honest, with huge source of meaning and motivation, but also sometimes demanding on energy. Okay, acting slower, not hustling. Love that. Partner reassurance, sport, mindfulness, meditation, walking, my family, curiosity, anthropology, perspective, faith, trusting in higher nature, in my higher nature. Acting school, awesome. I'm going to download this chat and I'll connect it on Miro board after, so you have also the list of ideas later if you're going to want to reflect. Then, okay, I see a few more. Support from others at work, especially from manager, informal communication with teams, celebrating achievements, meeting up with other people, socializing, music, dancing, meditation, going out, walking, working out. I see a lot of sports, I see a lot of friends, I see a lot of meditation and many other ideas. Positive action, self-knowledge, therapy, yoga, connecting with different communities, nature, journaling. Cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing this quite an extensive list. I'll save it right away, not to forget. No, okay. And I'll still dive in a little bit deeper into how can we think of these sources in terms of categories. But before that, I also want to share that when we are looking into what fills up our individual pool, the most important question is what is working for me already? And if you want to look into single best exercise related to what fills up my pool, it is the exercise of reflect or becoming more resilient. It is the exercise of reflecting on previous situation when we were resilient. So positive examples, situations with which we are happy of how they went. And then getting the ideas out of that situation. What were the tools and tips and tricks that we relied on? So kind of learning from ourselves. So the more similar situation we can find to current situation, the better. But even better is to reflect on diverse set of situations in the past. So this is how that exercise would go. The first step would be to think of one or several, ideally several, situations from the past when you feel they were challenging and difficult, yet you're content with how you dealt with it. So like, I'm happy with how I dealt, oh, happy enough with how I dealt with it. No perfectionism there, with how I dealt with that situation. And then asking, what were the sources of my resilience in that situation, and just listing them down and doing that for 3-4 different situations and then bringing them together. If you want, we can also do that a bit later here together, but we can also go more into discussing and sharing the tools. So I'll still just share one thing with you about the sources of resilience, and then we'll see where we want to go with that. And in general, this reflection, what influenced your resilience, positively or negatively, and kind of just capturing that toolbox. Now, when we think about the sources of resilience, including the ones that you wrote, and in general, what fills up our pool, we can think of 4 big groups of sources that contribute to resilience. One of them is physical. Many of you mentioned sport, or I don't know if anybody mentioned sleep, but it's huge. Like the first shortcut to be more resilient, if you can, have a good sleep. Already after that, it kind of capacity is much bigger. But anything physical is also about energy management. The more better we manage our energy, the more resilient we are. When we have more energy, we control, like we have more willpower, we have better cognitive abilities, we have better problem-solving abilities, we are more patient, we connect better, we have more positive emotions. So in general, managing our energy, one of the first foundations. Nutrition was also mentioned, also quite important. One more thing from physical category that contributes a lot is pain. Having physical pain over a longer period of time is detrimental to our resilience. That doesn't mean we cannot have physical pain and still find other ways of being resilient, but it's a negative effect. We want to try to resolve it if we can, or like manage it. Also, any unhealthy habits like smoking, because they're negative for our physical resistance and physical fitness and energy and so on. Then the next group is mental resources. I would say this is the most important group to work on and to develop, because it's the only one that is truly under our control in every situation. That's what Rafa had that great question, like, can I influence the situation or not? I said it's sometimes good to rephrase it into how can I influence, or what can I influence in this situation? Because my thoughts and attitudes are always something I can influence in any situation. That doesn't mean it's easy, and that doesn't mean I have full control. But in every single situation, if all control is taken away from me, that's one aspect with which I can still work to shift my thinking about the situation, to shift my perception, and to turn that. At the same time, being one of the most important and powerful, I think it's also one of the most difficult ones to manage better. And we can work on it, among other things, with therapy, mentioned in chat as well, meditation, but also through conversations with other people, through journaling, through gratitude exercises, through communication with others. We can work on it in many, many ways. We can also discuss it deeper. You will choose which one we go in deeper. Then the next one, I'm just checking the chat. I see food makes a big impact. Yeah, beware when approaching someone who is already hungry. Yeah, true that. It also influences the energy in a way, but yeah, the mood as well. Okay, then the third group is emotional. And positive emotions in general are very related to having more resilience. And it's really interesting because not just emotions in the situation, but the amount of positive emotions we have in life in general influences how resilient we are in general and also in the situation. If in the situation I manage to maintain some positive emotions, that actually makes me more resilient. It's a little bit, I mean, when you think about it, it becomes obvious, but at first, people sometimes block themselves from positive emotions in a negative situation because, like, I don't know, I lost someone, nothing should be funny today. Not true. You could have lost someone and there can still be something that was funny today. This is really stressful situation. I shouldn't enjoy the challenge. I should deal with, or whatever. So often we think that there is no much place for positive emotions, or that we are bad people if we have good emotions and positive emotions in a bad situation. But in reality, they fuel us. They give us energy. They give us emotional energy. They give us physical energy. They make us more creative. They make us more connected to others. So in reality, we should strive to allow ourselves and even build some positive emotions within any challenging situation. And that can mean to also go directly to look for joy or what's fun or what not, but it can also mean a big range of other options, like to see what can I be proud of. Can I feel connected or love or belonging to something or someone? Can I look for gratitude, right? Or appreciation or curiosity? So there can be a big range of positive emotions that are not just joyful and happy and perky, but that are very appropriate to help us deal with the situation. So on the other side, negative emotions are not helpful. And I mean, of course, they will exist. That's not uncomfortable emotions in challenging situations are normal. And sometimes they can help us mobilize energy short term, like anger help us do that, or connect deeper short term, like sadness can do that. But overall, they will be draining for our energy if we stay with them long, and they will keep us mentally in less creative and less open space. There will be more of a tunnel vision and focusing on short-term things, not being creative about solving the problem. And with that, they're detrimental to resilience. And then the last final bit are the social ones. The social, you mentioned friends so many times, kids as well. There was not much family apart from kids, but okay. But in general, social resources meaning the support that we are receiving from our environment, which can be real support, meaning actions and specific actions that helps us resolve the situation, or it can be emotional support, meaning people just kind of helping us to deal with it better. And on the other hand, also us supporting others can be a huge resource for us to go through the situation, because it gives a sense of meaning, it gives a sense there is something bigger than us, it gives us focus that's not only on us and kind of self-pity, but it's more outward going towards someone else. And now I would love to hear from you in a bit more open space. What would you like to explore next? Would you like us to actually touch on and go together through that exercise? When was I resilient? We can do it in a breakouts or here and share whoever wants. So what made me resilient? What are the aspects? Or would you like us to go through one of these four and share some tools and maybe questions there? Or do you have any questions? So I'll rephrase that. First, if you have any questions, I'll give you a minute to share them in chat. Then I'll share poll from these four. Which of these would you be most interesting that we go deeper in? And if you would like to do the exercise together, the one with reflecting on past resilience, please also just share in chat that you would like to do that. If we have at least like 7, 8 people sharing that, then we will do it together. If not, I will leave it to you. So any questions in chat? I see the comment not to forget the medications. Yes, very much agree, but I would say that would go under physical. Because they influence our chemistry and biological aspect of everything. And of course, then it would have an effect on mental and emotional, but anything we do physically has effect on everything else. So yeah, medication, although I would say medications also, there needs to be the right fit of the cause and the medication. So that's a bit maybe also not as straightforward. Cool. Mariki says looking at tools. Paula says looking at tools. Okay, let me launch the poll. And just hear which of these four you would like to have. You can vote for several. Whichever will have, like if we'll have few similar ones, we'll split the time and touch briefly on different ones. If we'll have a clear winner, we will go with that one. And I'll be happy to share some, but I'll also be happy if you want to share some or have a question. Okay, I'm leaving it for another minute or so. I think I squeezed in a lot so far and fairly fast. So if anything was unclear, you can, by all means, drop the question. Love the one that came in chat already. I'll answer it right after the poll. Resilience is also a very huge topic. We can talk about it literally for weeks. So I do want to make sure that we direct it where what's interesting for you. Okay, so we have 28 out of 33 minus me. I think we'll still give it 5 seconds to vote. If you're reluctant, do it now. Okay, cool. So we have two clear winners. I'll share it with you as well. Mental and emotional. I'll just write down for myself. So we'll stick with these two primarily. We also had social. That one I can also cover fairly short. So let's split the time between these three. And unless other questions come in, I'll see for the rest of the time to split it between mainly mental and emotional and a bit of social. But if other questions will be coming in, then I'll prioritize your questions or preferences. We had a question, how to cope with peers, like horizontal relations that are not so much resilient. I think it's always tricky to ask how to manage someone else. There is always limited scope to that. But I think one thing that we need to be aware of is, first of all, that resilient individuals and resilient organizations are two different things. What we are talking today is resilient individuals, and they don't sum up to resilient organization. You can have resilient individuals who are together and make a very non-resilient team, and the opposite. You can have very resilient team or organization that doesn't really have resilient individuals. Today, we're focusing quite on individual. I think in this situation, having peers who are not so resilient, the question would be, should I try to support them in their resilience? I'll give a few quick ideas how. Or do I want to focus on us as a team to be resilient, and what they do for themselves, it's none of my business. If it's for the team, then that's a lot about mutual trust and sense of support, about good communication. So also good habits of communication, that there is clarity and information sharing and so on. And also of a common sense of purpose. These are some of the main elements. There is a bit more, but these are some of the main elements. If we want to think about their individual resilience, it's really hard to tell, because also the question is, could you work with them directly and actually be like, hey, you ask for help, right? Let me give you some ideas. Or would you want to kind of nudge them and put them ideas kind of under the table without being straightforward about them? I would say for nudging, you could share some of the good books. One book that's really beautiful and can be recommended in a more subtle way is Men's Search for Meaning. I'm sure some people know it because it's very well known. It's by Viktor Frankl. It's fairly short. It's about his experience of being in concentration camp for quite a while, I think 3 or 4 years, and observing people around him and noticing who dealt really well and who was really resilient, regardless of situation that was completely hopeless and completely out of their control. In my mind, it's a book about mindset, even more than resilience, but also about resilience. I think it pushes people a lot into thinking about ultimate ownership of our thoughts and our approach. So as such, it can be really kind of inspiring, not necessarily direct tools. And I would say for other things, you could also just share some tools with them directed at specific behaviors you see they struggle with. Like if they struggle with stress, and the same goes for you, if these are your kind of weak links. If they struggle with stress or with managing emotions, then tools like meditation or self-check-in, I'll share self-check-in with you in a bit, are really good. And you can share them like, hey, this is the tool if you just need to relax a bit. You don't have to say this is the tool because I think you're not resilient. It can be this is the tool to manage stress, this is the tool to be more focused, to relax, and so on. So if you realize their mindset is very negative, then you could share with them something, an article about gratitude exercise or something like that. So I think it needs to go a little bit targeted. What is it about them that is sabotaging them from your perspective? Cool. I'll move on. Yeah, that's a big question though, but I'll move on not to stay for too long. Emma says tool would be helpful. Great. Not sure how many people are active job hunting, but it may be helpful when receiving regret, feedback, or not hearing anything. Okay, so that lack of information. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So I think the interesting thing when we talk about tools is to split them between the two things. I'll just stop with the slide to move to the ones that are about the topic you asked for. I think when we talk about the tools, we need to go back to that internal versus external. Some tools will help me manage myself, and some tools will help me how do I react. And I think in the situation that Emma mentioned in chat, like if you don't, if you, I don't know, if you don't receive feedback, if you don't hear anything back, and so on, that's more about managing our own mental state, right? More about emotion and mindset than externally. So I think the first thing we want to differentiate in a situation is, should I manage myself or something else? So one of really, really good exercises I wanted to share with you is the self-check-in. And maybe we can do it together. We'll do fairly short version, but you will need to drop any distractions for just a couple of minutes. No, so I'll give you half a minute to prepare for that as I share a bit more. So the exercise of self-check-in is the exercise when we try to understand better what is actually happening for me and what do I need. Because in most of situations when we need to be resilient, there are also situations when we go into fight or flight and we are very reactive and we think short term and we think narrow, and we don't choose the best option to manage ourselves because we are not present enough. We are not aware enough in that moment. So one of the best fallback things to do is to fall back to first check in and manage our own attitude, and then ask, what do I want to do according to the situation? Of course, that doesn't go for quick emergency, but that goes for most of these classical resilience situations. So one of the exercises we can do then, it's called self-check-in. I'll share later a link as well to recorded version if you want to come back to it. But it's basically the exercise in which we ask ourselves 5 questions. And I'll ask you to take a nice deep breath. And I'll guide you through these 5 questions. You will need to focus a bit internally. So do take maybe a few more breaths. Keep them going, even if I don't remind you. And probably it will be helpful if you close your eyes, just so you can focus better and notice better. If you don't feel like closing your eyes, then find a spot on your wall, on your floor, that's like super neutral, something that is nothing going on there. Just park your gaze there. So you don't have a lot of visual stimuli, but you can really turn inwards. And with one more breath, we'll go for the first question. And the first question is, how am I doing physically? So my body, how does my body feel right now? And remember to breathe, and I'll just give you 20, 30 seconds of silence to notice that. You can do a little mental scan from feet all the way up to your head. Notice, what do you feel in your body? How do you feel physically? Then with one more nice deep breath, we can ask, how about emotionally? What emotions are present for me right now? And I'll give you again just 20 seconds of silence to notice. But I will say, usually the first one or two emotions are not the most interesting ones. Stay with the question a bit longer. Notice also what shows up a bit later. So what emotions are present for me? And then the third question, how about my thoughts? What is happening in my mind right now? And here you just want to notice. You're not changing anything. You're not overthinking, not analyzing, just noticing which thoughts are passing through your mind. If you can see a link between some of these thoughts and emotions or thoughts in the body, that's great. If not, it's okay. And then one more breath. And how about my energy? What is my energy level right now? And the quality of my energy? From 1 to 10, how would you score it? And how would you describe it with a couple of keywords? If you would give it a color, what would you say right now for how your energy feels? Remember to breathe as you're noticing. And the final question, based on how I feel physically, emotionally, mentally, and my energy, what do I need? What do I need right now or in my life these days in general? Then we can take one more really deep breath and maybe shake off a bit or stretch and open your eyes. Get back to the space and just notice a little bit, what did you learn out of this exercise? You're welcome to share in chat something if you want, but it's primarily for you to realize what was interesting for you. If there was an aspect from these four that was more difficult to relate and to answer, that's one that would be valuable to tune into more. So you could also play with this exercise in different formats. Just doing, how do I feel and what do I need? Or just, how do I feel physically, staying with that a little bit? How do I feel emotionally, staying with that a little bit? So you could also adjust it to what is interesting for you in the moment. But one thing that is really interesting is to recognize especially which parts were tricky. Yeah, I see the last question was hardest. Yes, it can be. It just speaks of that. What are you least connected with in yourself? I see, reminder to take a silent moment. Yeah, every day. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, this exercise is really nice, but you can spend on it 5 or 10 minutes like we did now, but you can also play it in a minute or two, just choosing one aspect and how am I feeling right now? How would I like to be? And what do I need to get there? If you want to kind of make it more goal-oriented, more targeted. That last variation could be really good fit for the question we had about when you deal with a lot of rejection or no answers or something like that. That's one thing you could do often and just say, hey, how do I feel right now? Oh, I'm worried or I'm overthinking. Nobody's answering, or I feel miserable because nobody's answering. How do I want to be instead? And what do I need to get there? And sometimes I'll need a run, and sometimes I'll need a cake, and sometimes I'll need to journal a bit and just reframe my thinking. But the best thing I can do is to make it individual and choose based on what's happening, not in general always follow the same track. Okay, I'm just checking the comments. Great exercise to stay present, connected, and grounded. super interesting that first two emotions were indeed not the actual ones at the moment. Yeah, the loudest emotions are ones that are obvious and that are already screaming and we know them. The ones that show up after, you stay with it for a minute, that's the interesting one because that's the one we kind of put under the carpet because we were busy with the situation or whatnot. So especially with the emotions bit, it pays off to stay with it longer, but also with the body. Because first thing you will notice in the body will be like, oh, I don't know, my back hurt or my neck hurts. Important information. But like in my hands, there is nothing. That's even more important information. I don't know what's happening in half of my body. So with that, especially, I want to stay and a little bit, go a little bit deeper, just give it a bit more time and curiosity. Oh, I like this. The idea about sharing these reflections to my partner so they can understand, especially the emotional element. Cool, great. I realized I need sleep. Great. I hope that wasn't my doing, but I'll accept it if it was. Cool. Okay, let me share quickly some of the emotional ones. And because you kind of voted for emotional and mental resources. And again, each of these topics we can go so far in, but I just want to share some ideas that you can work with right away. So with emotions, probably there are two important things. One I mentioned before, to build in our life in general as many positive emotions as we can. I'll share a tool also on how to do that in a bit. So building positive emotions in our life in general. And second, allowing and creating also positive emotions in the moment when we are experiencing some difficulty, right? When we don't feel well. And if we think about positive emotions, there is one that's more impactful on or more appropriate for moments of resilience than any other, and that's gratitude. And that is one that we can use in the situation by falling back to saying, hey, there is a lot of happening that I don't like, but what can I be grateful for? And falling back to that. But it's even better if we realize that in general in this period we need more capacity, more resilience, be more patient or whatever, to actually work on strengthening gratitude proactively, not waiting for the moment when we need it, because then maybe it's not that accessible to us if I never do it, but to really pick it up as an exercise. And that is really easy and famous exercise, also quite based on research and quite supported that it's effective. And that's the exercise called 3 Good Things. And the idea is just that each evening we write in a journal 3 to 5 things that we are grateful for in that day. And we do it just for a minute or two in the evening. And we do it for a period of at least like 6 months, 6 weeks, sorry, not 6 months, 6 weeks or up to 8 weeks, let's say, to just train our mind to be searching for gratitude a bit more. Now, the important thing with this exercise is it's not a mood booster. It's not like, oh, I'll do it just to lift my mood right now. It's a mindset training exercise. So it's something that does not need to have effect immediately. It's something that needs to have effect after several weeks of doing it. And you will notice effect in a random moment in the day, not in the time when you're doing it. And to make it really easy, it's a good idea to keep a mini notebook on your pillow and then just before going to sleep, doing literally 1 minute of writing things down. Or it's also really nice to share that with kids or a partner and just kind of have this end of the day sync up. Hey, what are 3 things you're grateful for? And we want to look for small things and big things, and we want to look not to repeat the same things every day. So we kind of train that, looking mechanisms. I'm checking I'm checking the chat. I see LigiWeb. I don't know what's LigiWeb. So did a brilliant exercise with my team in the past on gratitude, using a glass pearl to hold while thinking of 3 good things. Cool. Sounds nice. If you have some link to share on the exercise, feel free to drop it in chat. I'm not familiar with it. But I like also how it's taken to the team versus individual. Okay, we still have a 5-minute journal also, link in chat. Awesome. Yeah, grab those links from chat, although I will post it also in Miro if you're gonna want to come back later. Now, with positive emotions in general, one of the exercises that can be really fun is to create your list of happiness boosters. And there is one we created on Happiness Academy. I'll share it also as a poster, but I think it's way more powerful to create your own. you know? And it does not need to be happiness booster. It can be positive emotions booster of any kind. So you could write a list of gratitude boosters, of pride boosters, of love boosters, like anything you would want, curiosity boosters, anything you would want to maintain and boost. But what's the idea of creating lists like that? So when we are in positive emotions, our mind is much more creative and open. We see more possibilities. We see more connections between things. And we see solutions to things that in more negative mindset we don't see. Because in negative mindset, we turn into short-term vision, tunnel vision, focus on details, no big picture perspective. Because of that, when we are in any sort of negative mood, negative mindset, negative emotions, stress, tension, the good ideas how to manage it are not so accessible to us. So it's not just that we don't have the willpower and energy to do something to change our mood. It's also we don't have a good idea because nothing sounds fun in that moment, right? Because of that, it's really good practice to create a list of things that have a positive effect on our mood in a moment when we are in a positive mood. And literally creating it like a toolbox or a list that we use when we feel that we are being challenged, that we don't feel well, that we are a bit down with our mood. We just received, I don't know, rejection letter. We just got discouraged by needing to be very patient for a very long time. Then we can actually go to that list, pick something and do it without overthinking. Will this work? Will it not? Just really do it. So big invitation to do a homework of just 10 minutes, creating such list for yourself. Even better if you buddy up with someone and do it together. And in the meantime, you can also take the one, I'll also share it in the list on Miro. You can also grab this one for Happiness Academy just for the first ideas. But again, I would encourage you to do yours. With that in mind, one more thing, the last one on emotions, that's very neglected sometimes with emotions, is how many diverse positive emotions exist. There is hundreds of them. And we keep falling back to, joy. Like, I need positive emotion, I should be more joyful, But one thing we can also think about is what other positive emotions would I like to feel? And what gives me those emotions usually? And can I add it to my boosters list? And can I add it to my schedule? And can I do it more often without, waiting for bad situation to be inspired by it? Here is the list. I'll share the slides as well, so you'll have it as well. But here is the list of the 10 most common positive emotions, like the ones that we experience as humanity most frequently from positive emotions. So maybe some of them inspires you, like, make a list. What gives me that feeling? What gives me that emotion? I'll just check chat for questions, and then I'll still use, okay, there was also a link for some of the free resources. I'll save it and add it later. So you did ask also for some mental resources. I think self-check-in was quite in between. Definitely one of the ways of influencing that. But I wanted to share just a couple of quick ones. I know we are quite at the end of the time, so I'll be very fast with this. But one of the things that kind of Rafa did spoiler already, but I would say this is the ultimate resilience question. When I need to deal with something that's difficult and I have no idea what to do, this is what I should do first. And that is ask the question, what can I influence in this situation and what should I accept? And based on that question, invest my energy in the things that I can influence. That can be my mindset sometimes. That can be working on the solution sometimes. It can be a very different answer. In some situations, we have a lot of control. In others, we have very little. So it's not the universe. And often we are mistaken how much control we have. But regardless of that, even if we don't have the perfect answer, what this question does is it shifts us in a focus in which if we invest energy, we will actually feel we moved forward. And something will change, and we will be motivated that actually what we're doing is making a difference. While if we keep pushing where we have no control, then we will just feel less and less hopeful and just waste a lot of energy. So that's really, it's question of energy management and focus management. The second thing that is huge driver is meaning. So in any sort of situations when we need to be more resilient, we can play with falling back to what is important to me. What are my goals in this situation? What is most meaningful to me? What kind of learning can I find here? What are my values and how can I put them in practice in this situation? Anything that gives a sense of purpose and meaning, that will be sort of the pulling point that will pull us through the situation. So this kind of not reflecting on what's good or bad about this situation, but reflecting on my goals, my values, what do I want out of life? How can I work on that in ways that are under my control? What are actions I can do proactively and invest energy in them? That will put us back in that more feeling that we have more control over a situation. I hope that's helpful. We are super at the top of time, so I'll just check the chat. Cool. We have a few more links in chat. I won't go through them, but I will save them and I will upload them to Miro later. You can save them as well. There are 3 dots next to the chat that say save chat if you would like. I want to share one final thing about resilience. And that is that previously, when we did check-in, you mentioned in many ways that resilience is all about grit and perseverance and staying, and going through and pulling through. But there is one keyword that's even much more in the core of resilience, and that is adaptability. So if you would need to define resilience in one word, it would be flexibility and adaptability. Adaptability to approach situation differently if my previous approach didn't work. To learn new tool, to be flexible in choosing which approach and tools do I use in this situation, and to always explore and play with new tools. So ultimately, it really comes back to adaptability, much more than the strength and pulling through and going through, which are more rigid ways of dealing with it. Adaptability is more fluid and much more rewarding and has stronger effect, you could say. Now, I will stop here, even though resilience, we could continue forever and ever. I know Grace had some mini final words to close off. Before that, I just want to say thank you for staying with me. I hope that wasn't too many info too fast. I'll share the slides. There are really a couple more tools in slides. I'll also share a list of resilience sources and a few other things on Miro, right, still today. So you can also grab them from there if you want to dig in deeper, and you can always come back with any questions if you awake to some new questions tomorrow. Grace, word to you.
Thank you so much, Mirna. I feel like I could listen to you talk about this topic and do more exercises for hours and hours. The hour just flew by so quickly. So thank you so much for so many valuable insights. I was writing so much down, and I'm sure everybody else was. So yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, I hope for everyone this was a helpful session for you. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about, thinking about your career and skills and all of this, but it's also really important to remember to think about resilience as well when you're going through this transition phase. So we will continue. Sort of on a similar topic this week. Our next session is on Wednesday, where our speaker will provide the I Am Remarkable workshop and talk a little bit about how it relates to imposter syndrome. So also keeping on this theme as well. Then we'll have a session at the end of the week as well. And just a reminder that next week, Judith and I are planning a final additional session, more of a peer support. But we're going to be giving an update about that later this week. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thanks again, Mirna. And I wish everyone a lovely day. Right.
Thank you. Grace, we had a question in chat for link to other events. So maybe we just want
yeah.
Before we run off.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone. See you on LinkedIn maybe or in Shaker's Slack. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. just finding this link.
I think it was in L&D Shakers in LinkedIn group as well. I saw it there, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna